Part 8. I want to discuss it with you. In the evening, Xuan Dian still heard the news from Zhang Mama after all, and came to see it in person. When Xuan Huaifeng saw Xuan Dian, he remembered that he had asked Lin Qijun to inquire about the news, but he got no news at all, even though Lin Qijun was gone. He is in good health, and he is not sick at all. Zhang Mama is very suspicious. Xuan Dian said, I think Zhang Mama is right. Your complexion is so bad, what's wrong with your eyes? It's actually red and swollen? She flipped his face and looked carefully. Xuan Huaifeng ducked his head and said, I haven't slept well in the past 2 days. And my eyes are bloodshot. Then he asked, when will my brother-in-law come back? Xuan Dian's face darkened immediately. Who knows? Since he left that day, I haven't seen him for several days. He no longer has this family in his heart, and his heart has changed very quickly. Xuan Huaifeng had something on his mind, and he couldn't help sighing deeply with his sister. Xuan Dian was thinking about her husband, but she didn't pay attention to her brother's abnormality. For the next few days, Xuan Huaifeng seemed to be living in a divided world. For a while, I wanted to go out, go to Daxin Foreign Trade Company, or go directly to Lin's mansion, find Lin Qijun, and ask clearly in person, but for a while I feel that I can't go out. What if Lin Qijun really went out of the way temporarily? When he got there, he would definitely make a long-distance phone call to explain it. If he just went out at that time, wouldn't he just miss it? After a while, I thought again that Lin Qijun probably regretted it. Just like what my sister said, people's hearts change quickly. After a while, it was completely overturned. Lin Qijun asked him to move out of the New Year's house. It was real. The feeling that they were together, the comfort, was not fake. After a few days in a daze, Xuan Huaifeng lost 2 or 3 pounds, and he looked even thinner. Zhang Mama saw that both of their siblings were emaciated, and she was so distressed that she kept reciting Buddha, trying to cook something for them to eat. No matter how good the food is, it is like chewing wax for both siblings. On this day, Xuan Huaifeng was still lying on the bed in a daze because of the discomfort. Zhang Mama came over, knocked on the door and said, Little master. A man named Lao Hu arrived at the door and said that he will send a letter to you. Lao Hu? Isn't it the same Lao Hu who delivered porridge to the hospital last time? That must be the letter that Lin Qijun asked him to send. Xuan Huaifeng suddenly became nervous, jumped up from the bed, put on his shoes in a hurry, and said to the outside, Zhang Mama. I'll come right away. You ask him to wait a moment, I'll come right away. There was no time to tie the shoelaces. He rushed to open the door. Zhang Mama was waiting at the door. Seeing his anxious look, she smiled and said, Don't worry, people have left early, so let's leave a letter. There are only 2 pieces of paper, is it worth the hassle? Where is Xuan Huaifeng? When he had time to listen to her nagging, he took the letter from her hand, turned around and locked the door, and immediately opened the letter. He took out the letter and unfolded it, and saw Lin Qijun's familiar handwriting. Xuan Huaifeng's nose almost got sour. The letter was written with a pen, and the writing was still good-looking, but it looked a little messy. As if it was written secretly while being watched. My love, Huaifeng. My mother came here suddenly, and she was very strict about my whereabouts. During these days, I couldn't even make phone calls. And it was even more difficult to go out alone without being monitored by someone entrusted by my mother. Work arrangements should be put aside for the time being and will be brought up when the time is right. This is really the pain of a big family, and you grew up in a big family like this. And you must know the pressure I go through. Miss you deeply, love you. No matter what, my heart is with you. There are only a few lines in the Qijun letter. Xuan Huaifeng took the letter and read it again and again, but could only see so many lines. He didn't know how to describe his mood, some surprised, some relieved, and some unspeakable disappointment and pain. But if you think about it carefully, you can't completely blame Lin Qijun. After all, he has his own scruples. Back then, Xuan Huaifeng was also urgently sent to the UK by his father, isn't it the same? He held the letter in the palm of his hand, turned his face toward the window, and stood looking at it for a long time, but he didn't see anything in his eyes. Anyway, Lin Qijun was just controlled by the family, not changed his mind. Maybe it should be enough. With Lin Qijun's letter, Xuan Huaifeng's gloomy mood finally changed a little. Eat a little more for lunch and dinner. Zhang Mama was both pleased and surprised. I don't know what was written in the letter, it's like a panacea. If I knew this, I would ask a literate gentleman to help me write a few letters to the young master. Xuan Huaifeng was in the Nian's house. After being bored for many days, now that he knew Lin Qijun's condition, there was no need to guard Nian's house phone. After dinner, he planned to take a walk outside. At the gate, I just saw a black car driving into the alley. On this road, the most stylish house is Nian's house. When Xuan Huaifeng saw the car, he couldn't help but think, did my brother-in-law come back? He was standing on the steps waiting. Sure enough, the car stopped when it reached the gate of Nian's house. As soon as the car door opened, Nian Liangfu got out of the car and stepped onto the stairs with his head down and thinking about something, not noticing that someone was on the steps for a while. Although Xuan Huaifeng hated him, he still called out, "Brother-in-law." Huh? Nian Liangfu suddenly raised his head, saw him, his face expressionless, and asked him, "Has your sister slept?" "Not yet." Nian Liangfu didn't know what to think about, and said casually, "It doesn't matter if you don't sleep." He ignored Xuan Huaifeng and went into the house on his own. Xuan Huaifeng thought about it for a while. When his brother-in-law came back, he might have had a big fight with his sister. He couldn't worry about Xuan Dian, so he decided to go back and have a look. When he arrived at the small courtyard where Xuan Dian lived, he heard their quarrel. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" The yellow light was printed on the window. The figures inside shook. Xuan Dian's voice came from the room, and she asked angrily, "How many days have you not been home? And you will rummage through things as soon as you get home. What the hell are you digging? Don't touch it. This is my thing." Nian Liangfu. "What are you doing?" Nian Liangfu was in the room, and he didn't know what to do. Xuan Dian's voice suddenly rose, and she shouted, "Give it back to me. Give it back to me." Nian Liangfu said, "You don't need it, why keep it? Give it to me." Xuan Dian's voice was so sharp that the roof was scratched. "What are you doing for you? Don't even think about it. You use your wife's jewelry to please those sleazy bitches. How shameless are you? Give it back to me." Nian Liangfu, "If you dare to touch my dowry, I will fight with you." In the room, there was a crackling sound in the room, the crisp sound of the pot smashing on the ground. It seems to be getting started. Xuan Huaifeng was still hesitating whether to rush into their husband and wife's room, but when he heard the sound, he was worried that his sister would suffer, so he rushed in immediately. Xuan Dian grabbed Nian Liangfu's neckline and grabbed a pearl chain in his hand. Although she was fierce, she was still a girl, and her strength was no match for a man. When she saw her brother coming, she quickly called, "Huaifeng, hurry up, my pearl chains." Without saying a word, Xuan Huaifeng rushed over to grab Nian Liangfu's arm, twisting it with all his strength. He was not very strong, but after all, it was two people fighting each other, and Nian Liangfu was suddenly defeated. If he was not careful, Xuan Dian snatched the pearl necklace back. Nian Liangfu saw that something was robbed. His veins jumped with anger. and he shoved Xuan Huaifeng hard. You scumbag, what do you want me to do? Get out of here. Pointing at Xuan Daiyan and scolding, idiot who no one wants in 8 lifetimes. Can't I afford a pearl chain? It's better if you don't give it. I'll buy 10 for Xiao Fengxi. Holding the pearl chain at the mouth of her heart, she sat beside the bed and cried, You're not human. You're shameless. Nian Liangfu promised Xiao Fengxi that he wanted to give her a pearl chain. This time, he came back specially to get it, but he didn't expect to get it, so he became furious. Wait and see, I'll marry her tomorrow. 8th person's sedan chair. She is wearing a red robe. You think she is an actress and refuse to let her be a concubine? Let me tell you. I will marry her as the principal. I just like it. What's the matter? Now people are free, and love can be combined. If you can stand it, be a sister with her, a flat wife. Understand? You can't stand it, and I don't despise you. Divorce is enough. Haven't you always had new ideas? Divorce is so easy. Go through the formalities with the government and make a newspaper. In the future, if you want to become a nun or find a little white face, it's up to you. Anyway, if you do something shameful, don't have anything to do with my Nian family. Xuan Daiyan sat on the bed. At the same time, she was still whimpering at first, but when she heard the back, she stopped uttering a sound. Suddenly her eyes closed, her body leaned back, and with a thud, she fell onto the bed. Xuan Huaifeng was originally standing in front of her, blocking his brother-in-law from coming over. Hearing the movement behind him, he turned his head and was shocked. He rushed over and hugged Xuan Daiyan's soft body and shouted, Sister! Sister! What's wrong with you? Zhang Ma and the servants hid outside. When she heard Xuan Huaifeng's call, she rushed in without caring for anything. Seeing this scene, she patted her thigh and cried loudly, Miss! Miss! What's wrong with this? What do you do? Uncle, why are you so cruel? Nian Liangfu scolded him fiercely to vent. But he didn't expect his always powerful wife to fall down. He was stunned for a while. It's dead? Why don't you call the doctor quickly? You bastard. It's all rice. The servants rushed to call and ask the doctor to come. Nian Liangfu suddenly remembered that Xiao Fengxi was waiting for his string of pearls. Now Xuan Daiyan's string may be difficult to get, so hurry up and buy a string, otherwise, Xiao Fengxi will get angry with him again. When the house was in a mess, he got in the car and left without saying a word. Later, a doctor who studied Chinese medicine came, and he also helped Xuan Huaifeng who had just seen a doctor last time. When I went to the main room, I checked Xuan Daiyan's pulse. Seeing that the patient was asleep, he didn't dare to disturb him, so he discussed his condition outside the house. Xuan Huaifeng was very anxious and asked him, Doctor, is my sister okay? She has been eating less recently, sleeping poorly, and feeling sad. Is she overly anxious? Look. Anxiety is a little bit anxious, but it's not a serious problem. Xuan Huaifeng said uncomfortably, My sister has always been very healthy, but now she fainted. And you said it was not a serious problem. The doctor smiled a little. It's not uncommon for a pregnant woman to be somewhat softer and weaker than usual. Xuan Huaifeng and Zhang Ma were stunned together. What? Congratulations, Mrs. Nian is happy. Xuan Huaifeng and Zhang Ma were still stunned. The doctor said it twice before they woke up. Zhang Ma was crying and sad, but she turned it all over and became beaming. She rubbed her hands happily, and almost turned around a few times in the same place, and said repeatedly, Bless the Buddha, bless the Buddha. What about Miss? It's good now, Miss is happy. And Uncle's heart will come back. There is no man in the world who doesn't want to be a father. Make sure Uncle will forget that fox spirit out of the sky. Xuan Daiyan was still lying. So it's hard to be disturbed. She couldn't wait to tell Nian Liangfu the news, but she didn't know where Nian Liangfu went. Xuan Huaifeng was not as optimistic as Zhang Mama, and said to Zhang Mama, "I'm afraid my brother-in-law left just now. It is not impossible to find him. Among these servants, there are always people who know the whereabouts of the master. And they just hide it from our sister, me and you." He turned around and looked around, pointing to the most Nian Liangfu closest one among the attendants and said, "Nian Gui, please take a trip to the woman's residence and tell my brother-in-law that my sister is happy. I just asked him to come back and have a look." Nian Gui said with a smile, "Young Master Huaifeng, you are joking. How could I know where the woman lives?" Xuan Huaifeng said lightly, "Don't deny it. You all were taking my brother-in-law's wages, so naturally you helped him. Although I'm stupid, I still understand the truth." He added, "I'm not asking for an address right now. I'm going to quarrel at the door. I just ask you to come over and report the news. Brother-in-law is also good news. Don't worry about him scolding you. If you think it's hard to travel, if you have a phone number over there, please make a call." Nian Gui looked at his eyes, although not sharp, but bright. He was very wise, and seemed to be quite certain. He didn't want to deny himself anymore. He smiled and said, "Don't blame us. Your brother-in-law ordered it. No one is allowed to tell your wife. Go and call." After saying that, he really went right away. Xuan Huaifeng was afraid that there would be too many people outside, which would disturb his sister and dissuade everyone else, and waited outside the door with Zhang Mama. After a while, Nian Gui came back. Zhang Mama immediately asked, "How is it? Did you get through?" Nian Gui nodded. "It got through." Zhang Mama asked happily, "When will uncle come back?" Nian Gui moved his lips, but didn't say anything. Seeing his expression, Xuan Huaifeng already knew that things were not going well, so he said helplessly, "It doesn't matter, you can just say it. You can tell us what he says." Nian Gui then told them, "Master answered the phone and heard that my wife was happy, but I was stunned for a while. Later, I heard a faint voice of a woman beside him, and I didn't know what to say. Later, the brother-in-law said something. Just say." Zhang Mama said anxiously, "Oh, just say it straight, what did he say?" Nian Gui pursed his mouth and said, "Sir, this matter seems to be God's will." Zhang Mama was concerned and confused, nodded straight, yes, of course it is God's will. Since it is God's will, let God decide. And tell the wife to take care of the child. If you have a son, that's fine. She will be the eldest wife, and Xuaifeng will be the concubine. If you have a daughter, I'm sorry. If she can't give birth to my son, I will marry another wife. Xuaifeng likes to enter the house and sit on an equal footing with her, and the two of them will become sisters. This is my solution." After speaking, Zhang Mama almost fainted, sighed, put her hands on the wall, and spit out a few breaths before she could speak, and trembled slightly. This must not be heard by the young lady. If I heard it, I would really piss her off. Pity that she is still pregnant with a child. Concerned about the lady in the room. She just didn't dare to cry. Xuan Huaifeng stood silently, bowed his head, and slowly clenched his hands that were hanging on both sides of his thighs into fists. He said to Nian Gui, "Don't tell anyone what your brother-in-law said, let alone tell my sister. If she listens to it, gets angry, and something happens, I'll settle the account with you." He turned his head and comforted Zhang Mama, "Don't cry, the sky won't fall. Brother-in-law, the person who cares most about him is his position as director. Ten Xiao Fengshi is not as important as his official name. My boss Bai Xuelan and I'm a very close friend, ask him to come forward to mediate, and things will turn around." The hope in Zhang Mama's tearful eyes was suddenly ignited, and she pulled Xuan Huaifeng to look at it. Young master, it's all up to you. You don't bullshit me as an old woman. Xuan Huaifeng said solemnly. My sister is lying in the room, why should I use this to coax you? He walked to the living room, looked at the gold-plated dial phone, hesitated for a moment, or he picked up the microphone, put it to his ear, dialed the phone, and said to the receiver, Operator, please help me pick up the residence of Chief Customs, Chief Bai Xuelan. This is the White Mansion. It was a servant. Xuan Huaifeng reported his name and said he was looking for Bai Xuelan. The servant seemed to never know Xuan Huaifeng's name, but after listening to him, he politely said on the phone, Mr. Xuan, I'm sorry, Chief Bai has gone out. Xuan Huaifeng asked, I know where he went. Is it? The servant was also very happy, and told him, the chief went to Tiantian Garden after dinner, and today there is a Bai Yunfei play. Xuan Huaifeng hung up the phone, went in to change clothes, and came out to take a car and go straight to Tiantian Garden. He knew that he and Bai Xuelan had broken like that, so when he went to beg someone, he would inevitably be ridiculed by Bai Xuelan. Before the past, he had told himself countless times that when he saw Bai Xuelan, no matter what he said, for the sake of his sister, as long as he worked hard and endured, as for the apology, as long as Bai Xuelan was willing to come forward to stop his brother-in-law's misbehavior, everything would be fine. Unexpectedly, when he arrived at Tiantian Garden, he knew that was not the case. Today, Bai Xuelan did not cover the entire Tiantian Garden. The seats below could be sold to individual customers, but they were already sold out. Xuan Huaifeng arrived at the gate of the garden, and at a glance, he saw the actors who had no money to buy tickets standing there. The door was full of black, and he stretched his neck to listen to the play. He squeezed to the innermost door, took out a few banknotes from his sister's money in his pocket, and put the $2 in the gatekeeper before being put into the garden. He knew that a person like Bai Xuelan who likes to spend money must sit in a box to watch a play. When he entered the garden, he didn't look at the first floor, but went straight up the stairs. When he reached the second floor, a loud shout suddenly sounded, Hey! What are you doing? What? At the entrance of the stairs stood two big men in uniform, like non-commissioned officers, with a box gun on their belts, staring at him murderously. Xuan Huaifeng looked at the uniform. It wasn't a police uniform, but he had a gun. After thinking about it, it was probably the uniform of the soldiers who were inspected by customs. Then he looked in, and there were 4 or 5 of the same big men standing in the corridor, all standing at attention and serious, guarded outside the box door. His family was also famous, and he understood that these were the guards of the chief of customs. He said to a guard at the entrance of the stairs, Excuse me, please help me. I'm Bai Xuelan's classmate, my name is Xuan Huaifeng, it's a little important. I'm looking for him. Don't waste his time, just say a few words. The guard heard that he was Bai Xuelan's friend, so his expression was not so vicious. He looked up and down Xuan Huaifeng before saying, Wait a minute, let me ask you a question. Xuan Huaifeng saw him enter the box and came out after a while, and asked the guard, What did he say? Go. Your grandma's classmate, our chief said that we don't know any surname Xuan at all. Hurry up. Hurry up. Xuan Huaifeng didn't expect Bai Xuelan's answer, and was stunned. He himself and Bai Xuelan asked for a break, but now he has the cheek to ask for help, and he is extremely ashamed. If it was normal, he would have turned around and left without a word. It was about his own sister, so he couldn't just walk away like this. He stood at the stairs for a while, and then summoned up the courage to negotiate with the guard. Please walk again and give him a word for me. Just say I apologize to him, this time. The guard didn't wait for him to finish, but cut him off rudely and said, I'll send you a message. Fuck, are you being an old man for your entertainment? Come on. You leave or not? If you don't leave, I'll draw my gun. And I will treat you as an assassin. Xuan Huaifeng thought to himself, since Bai Xuelan had already said that he did not know him, it would be useless to call the mansion. It is rare to find a real person now, so he must be called out to meet. Going out, he stretched out at the stairs and called out to the corridor, Bai Xuelan. Bai Xuelan, come out. I'll just have a few words with you. Alarmed, he put his hand on the gun case and looked here. When the guard saw Xuan Huaifeng's nonsense like this, he was very angry and said viciously, "Are you looking for death? Do you think I dare not kill you?" He really drew his gun, took a step forward, grabbed Xuan Huaifeng by the collar, dragged him to the corridor on the second floor, and punched him in the waist. Xuan Huaifeng hadn't been beaten like this since he was a child, and his waist was slammed violently, and his whole body seemed to be paralyzed. "I'll let you find death." The guard still didn't relieve his hatred, and took 2 steps forward. Just as he was about to kick him a few times, the door on the other side of the wing suddenly opened. Bai Xuelan walked out and asked uncomfortably, "What's the noise outside? How can people listen to the show?" When the guards saw that the chief had shown up, they all stood at attention. And the beating man quickly stopped and said, "Sir, this person is making a noise outside. I must see you." He pointed at Xuan Huaifeng on the ground. Bai Xuelan glanced at Xuan Huaifeng on the ground and asked, "Who hit him?" The guard saw that his face was wrong, and he was a little scared. After a moment of hesitation, he whispered, "I hit him." He said coldly, "It's ridiculous. It's rumored that the customs officers beat the common people casually. You're making it difficult for me to be a human being." The guard heard that and quickly helped Xuan Huaifeng up. Xuan Huaifeng was still sweating from the pain, but when he looked up, he couldn't help but lose his mind. It turned out that when Bai Xuelan came out, the other people in the box also ran out. They followed Bai Xuelan curiously and looked at this side as if watching a show. The Yu Luha I saw last time seemed to be in it. Today, I don't need her to make an appearance. Dress up. Dressed very fashionable and pretty, like a modern lady. Unexpectedly, Lin Qijun was also in the group, with a neat suit and a jade tree facing the wind. Standing out from the crowd just like Bai Xuelan. He seems to have made an appointment with Bai Xuelan to Tianyan Garden, listening to the play in the box for fun. Standing behind Bai Xuelan, he looked at Xuan Huaifeng with a worried look on his face. Seeing Xuan Huaifeng looking at him, he couldn't help but step back slightly, showing a look of hesitating to speak. Xuan Huaifeng was already extremely humiliated, and seeing his eyes, it was even more painful, and he could only stand there with gritted teeth. Seeing Bai Xuelan turn around to go back to the box, Xuan Huaifeng shouted, "Wait." Bai Xuelan stopped and turned around again. "Mr. Xuan, what advice do you have?" Although his face was smiling, his eyes were cold. As he turned around, the others followed him, all staring at Xuan Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng was too embarrassed to do anything, so he bit his head and said, "Please take a step to talk. There is one thing that I really can't do. I want to discuss it with you." "You must be joking, sir. There is something to discuss between you and me. Didn't you say it earlier? You are you, I am me?" There was a long corridor between the two, but his eyes were so sharp that it was chilling. So far away, it also shot at Xuan Huaifeng coldly like a flying knife. Xuan Huaifeng was blocked by him like this, he couldn't say anything. His face was pale. Lin Qijun couldn't bear to see it. He stepped forward to be a peacemaker, smiled, and said to Bai Xuelan, "Xuelan, they are all classmates, why bother? Huaifeng doesn't know how to deal with people, and his words often offend people. You always know that. Why are you so unwilling to forgive him this time?" I'll apologize to you on his behalf. Okay? Bai Xuelan glanced at Lin Qijun. The corners of his mouth twitched a little. He thought for a while with a half-smile, and then said, okay, I'll give you this face. Turning his head, he said coldly to Xuan Huaifeng, I'm watching a play, so I don't have time to talk to you. If there's something going on, let's do it. I have half an hour to spare at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Come to the White Mansion. Don't be late. Waiting for you. After saying that, he went into the box without looking back. Lin Qijun stopped in the corridor for a while, his head kept looking back. As if he really wanted to come over and talk to Xuan Huaifeng. However, Yu Luha noticed that he hadn't followed, and came out of the box to look for him, and said with a smile, so. Master Lin was left here, you have to come quickly, after a while, you will miss Pai Yunfei on the stage. Another young boy with a handsome face, who seemed to be a child actor who learned to play, also ran over and acted coquettishly at him. Master Lin, do you really watch my brother's play? He wants to know that you are on the stage. I'm not here, but I'll be angry. Without any hesitation, he hugged Lin Qijun's arm and dragged him into the box. Xuan Huaifeng watched this scene, and his mind was buzzing. Almost shaky. He also didn't know how he got back to Nian's house.